Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Press A to Climb Soapbox here on the Peak Orangutan YouTube channel. This is our podcasting show where we just kind of talk about a topic in video gaming. Sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not, but we always try to be at least informational. Informational, yes, not informative. Informational. Yes.
Very different. And now you've been informed about that.
Copyright Peak Orangutan. Is that going to be our thing? We have to do one of those in every. I
don't want to become king.com here,
Only
okay?
we keep developing new IP every time we do this.
It's like, wow, new IP. That's a bold statement.
Yeah, that doesn't be good IP. It's just new IP.
Okay, well,
IP, copyright Pink Orangutan.
Going with the AAA philosophy. It doesn't have to be good IP. It just has to be new IP. And I am, as always, your host, Nasty Man, and I am joined by the... I don't have fancy little sayings for you guys today. I'm sorry. I'm joined by the ever-coded Benjamin Arthur.
Hey, everybody.
The scary Uncle Devin.
So scary Uncle Devin. I accept.
Do you guys know any other scary Uncle Devin?
Well, no, I don't actually. And the ever-silent himself, Sir Tymp.
What's up?
And so today, what we're going to be talking about is the whole trend concept notion of what's going on with like crowdsourcing video games. You know, a lot of video games are starting to be kick-funded, kickstarted. There's Indiegogo, Kickstarter, all those other different websites and services you can use to do official crowdsourcing. And then you have like early access games on Steam where people buy into the game to get the early access, and that pretty much goes towards development. That's pretty much like a form of crowdfunding at that stage. And where that is, what's going on with all of that. And what brought this up was there's a game that got into early access just barely at the end of last year. That a game called Starbound. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it by now. We have some videos up on our channel of us playing through a little bit of Starbound. The game is in beta right now, and you can buy in to get early access to the beta. You can like quote unquote pre-order the game, and on their website they just released in their most recent sort of developer update for the game. They released. They talked about how they are planning all these new updates for the game. That's all well and good. And then at the very end of the post, they talk about the future of the company and what they're doing, as a company. And Chucklefish has been around before Starbound. This isn't necessarily their freshman entry into video gaming, but up until Starbound, they have been purely a publishing house. They've never been involved in development of any games. They purely have acted as a publisher. And Starbound is their first internally developed game, and actually the first game where they've been pretty much involved in the development in any way. And they talked about how they are planning on hiring out developers to start on a second project, which means they're going to be, of course, diverting what I'm sure is profits from the immense popularity of Starbound to starting up this new second game. And I had a problem with this, and I'll get your guys' opinions as well. It's because I had a problem with this where they talk about in the post, they're like, oh, this is not going to slow down the development of Starbound. They say, oh, this isn't going to slow down the development of Starbound. This isn't going to hurt the development of Starbound. And I had the thought to myself as well, is Starbound in a place in its development where just not being hurt is good enough? Like, is advancement something that you should be looking forward to? Because I pointed out, because I made a long post on their forums, and I talked about how shields have been in the game since it got released in the early access beta to the people who had pre-ordered it before it went up on the Steam early access site. Shields have been in the game that you can have. They still have placeholder descriptions. It's been several months. It's been about almost 3 months now. They have placeholder descriptions And it's not even like I don't even care that they don't have like long, detailed, like fluff feelings. Like shields actually are not all the same. Not all shields are created equal. The shields have different values that they are able to block. Their descriptions still don't let you know that. Nobody has bothered to try and patch that into the game yet. And now you're telling me you're not going to divert some of your profits to maybe hiring more people to finish Starbound? I mean, this is your freshman title. You're not, you're not Infinity Ward. You're not Blizzard. You're not, well, LucasArts is dead now, but LucasArts. You're not Nintendo. You're not SquareSoft. You're not a developer that's been around for a long time. You have this whole back history fall back. I'm like, oh, we've made games in the past. We still know how to make games. This is your first game you're developing. Why are you not trying to devote more resources to finishing it? Is basically my thought.
So 2 things come to mind for me. Number one, without like any kind of, I'm not sure if they provide this because I haven't personally looked, but do they have any kind of like transparency report that we can look at as early
From what
investors,
I've seen, no.
Okay.
And I go to their forums and their website very often. I haven't seen them release any sort of like financial data. As I'm sure what you're thinking of is what financial data is coming to.
The 2 things that kind of come to mind with that is, are they moving people from the Starbound development team to this new development team? Or is the second game that they're coming up with being funded separately? It might even be that.
From what it sounds like, they're not moving people from Starbound to this other team.
So that's
what it sounds like is they're hiring out developers. I don't know if they're planning on contracting a development team or eventually bringing people actually into the Chucklefish company to work as developers for the company. I guess that will that probably will depend on how successful the game is, how well it does. I'm sure if it does really, really well, they may think about actually bringing that company sort of into their fold as it is.
Because what I could see happening is that somebody came to them and said, yes, we'd like to invest in your company. We want you to make another game. We'll give you X amount of dollars for it, and that kind of thing. Where I could see that it's going to be something that's developed alongside it while the other stuff still remains. I don't know, how that'll work financially within the company. Maybe it will also allow them to bring in additional
I guess that's entirely
games.
Possible, but I feel like since they aren't doing the development of this game, like none of their current people are going to be involved in the development of this project, and they don't have a history as a developer, I would find it odd that somebody would come to them and say, here's a bunch of money, go hire a development team to make a game that you want to make. Because, this sounds like another idea that they have as a company. It would seem weird that some outside party investor would come up and here's $1 million. Go hire some developers and make this game. It sounds kind of cool.
in the web development world, that's actually been kind of an experience that I've had before where one company would come in and say, this is what we want. We don't really know anything about you guys, but we're going to give you this many dollars. Go make this site for us.
Yeah.
And we made the site. They trashed it immediately, but we got paid for it.
Hey, look at that.
So that, that's kind of one of the things of that's a thing that happens. I don't know on what kind of scale that happens.
Well, but what I'm saying there is
websites are a lot cheaper.
This company gave you the money. So what it sounds like you're talking about is they got a large investment from an outside source, which would be like if Bill Gates went to some company and was like, give me your idea for your website. And then they went, this is our idea. And he's like, you know what? That's a pretty good idea for your website. Here's $50 million. Go hire a web development team to do it for you.
I see where you're
that
going.
Would be very weird.
It's definitely different for a video game setup because it's not someone coming in and saying, here's my video game, build it. They're coming in and say, build out a video game. Then again, they're also an investor. They want money. Yeah. They're looking at a company that, they have a game that's
not entirely
successful.
That's not entirely
and
outside
still in early
of,
access.
Yeah,
and there's the chance that somebody's coming in and saying, hey, you guys have done well. We want to see more come out of this. Once again, without any kind of transparency,
that is possible.
Like we're gonna know.
I will admit that is possible.
Yeah. I'd say that's possible, but without something previous to bank on, I find that unlikely.
Yeah.
Well,
it would be a very weird circumstance.
The whole scenario strikes me as very bizarre because traditionally games tend to make money on a sort of decaying scale. So initially a game will release, people who are interested in the game will buy it, so they experience the biggest buy-in initially.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning of at the launch, and as time goes on, there are fewer people who are both in their target market and also who want the game.
I'd say the only
So over
exception to
time, it
that
kinda goes
rule
down.
is the MMO landscape. That's not always true for
Well,
MMOs.
there's that,
but
and there's
as far
also
as
another
non-MMO
one
games-
that's kind of bucked that trend. Notably, is Minecraft.
True.
And it's kind of a similar concept of
well, I'd say
people
yes
buying
and
into
no.
a game that they know is incomplete
Yeah.
while it's currently in development,
Yeah.
and it's a sort of conceptually it's a sort of trend that is still kind of finding its footing, because there's not a whole lot of instances of this kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to think of as a an investor being able to come up to a company and say, okay, so you guys have this in the works. You've worked as a producer in the publisher
Yeah.
in the past. So we want to invest in kind of your momentum that you guys have going. When historically the market has treated much better games that have a solid release, get their most of their money up front, and then it kind of peters off over time, as opposed to people who have intentionally structured themselves so that the amount of money they get over time is question mark. Like,
yeah.
here's most of a game. You can buy it now, and we're going to be, tweaking it as we go. And, there are games like Minecraft where if you bought into Minecraft early, the amount of game that you got compared to what exists now was
Oh god.
super small. That
Oh,
game
yeah.
had almost no content initially,
Yeah.
and it was still fun, but it
Yeah.
was nowhere near the same game that it is now. It's an entirely different beast than it was initially.
Which, speaking of Minecraft, actually kind of brings up a funny point. Was Minecraft considered gold when Notch decided to start working on other stuff, or was it still considered beta at the time?
I want to say that Notch. I want to say that Notch didn't remove himself from the lead design position on Minecraft until after it was gold. That's when Jeb came in
Yeah.
as the
Right.
official lead for
The
Minecraft.
official
Now,
developer.
whether or not Notch had already kind of had
Stop.
Jeb doing that in the first place and it just
Yeah.
hadn't been official yet is between Jeb, Notch, and God. But so it's I
I was gonna say that could be kind of another comparison of, hey, here's a game that hasn't even gone gold yet. And look, we've already started development on this other one.
yeah.
And that was kind of where I was going with this. Was there were other instances of this kind of thing happening, but it's the exception. It's not the rule. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like it's possible to do this and do it well, but on the other hand, Mojang's been working on other stuff now for a while, and honestly, who plays their other games?
Yeah, who plays Scrolls?
Yeah,
Can you even
nobody at
get
Bethesda.
Scrolls?
It's in their employee contracts.
They
can't.
Yeah, that was part of the settlement. I'm pretty sure no employees of Bethesda are
They can
allowed to play that game.
Scrolls, yeah.
Can you actually? I have not looked into Scrolls since all the Bethesda crap. Can you get Scrolls now?
Yeah. I remember when it first. I want to say when it either hit beta or came out. Total Biscuit did a big video on it, and it seems like you really liked it and wanted to play it a lot, and then it just kind of
Hasn't.
floundered out. Nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's
And Minecraft
the
is
model
still
on
breaking
its whole,
records
the
in
whole
sales.
crowdsourced, crowdfunded game, and the whole early access, pay to play kind of model
Yeah.
is it's super shaky right now. I feel like like I said, there are examples of where it can be done well,
Yeah.
where it has been done well at least, but I don't know how much of those are luck. Like they just happened to tap into a market that existed that wasn't really being addressed by the AAA developers.
It's like you talk about with Minecraft. Minecraft is pretty much the first game of its kind. So that's why
Right.
it was able to be the success that it is. Making a Minecraft-like game doesn't necessarily guarantee you the same success.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like I'm conflicted, because on the one hand I feel like it's not fair for us to, from the outside, look at it and say, look, we're going to speculate about where the money is coming from to do this, and maybe you're redirecting funds that were supposed to go to developing the game into developing some other game, or maybe you're getting investors from outside to come and look at it, but You still need to address your current games. We don't really know for sure. But also, as on the consumer end, I totally understand that kind of frustration to see a game that, like you were pointing out, is still clearly not finished, not even close. Like there's a lot of gameplay there, and there's a lot of elements of the game that are absolutely not finished.
Yeah.
And so to then, while it is still in that state, say we're moving on, or at least presenting that kind of an attitude, I feel like it is really risky because Starbound has done well because it's tapped into a market that I think has a lot of people who are really interested in that kind of game. And it seems like they've done a good job of making the kind of game that they set out to, and kind of pleasing the people who are looking to play that game and responding to criticisms from the people who play the game. But at the same time, it's still not finished. And while I know that, again, it's kind of this newer genre of funding where people are buying knowing that it's
finished,
not done.
Yeah.
Right, but it's
well,
tough when there's no goalpost where it's
finished.
Yeah,
like,
there's
you take
no
Minecraft
goalpost where
as a case.
It's where this game is going to be done at some point.
Yeah.
You have games like Minecraft where that's kind of their thing, where Minecraft is a game that's perpetually in development.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
I think that it will over time be something that will be difficult to sustain financially. And I think eventually there'll be a final version of Minecraft, and it won't be so much defined as we're out of ideas or we don't have anything else that we want to develop as it's no longer financially feasible because people who are interested have already bought, or in order to continue, people will have to pay again to get new content added.
Minecraft DLC.
Well, or it's a case of we want to do all of these things that we can no longer do in the engine that we built for Minecraft. So now we have to go back and rebuild
Minecraft 2.
Right, and that's the sort of thing. At that
hopefully,
point,
if they ever do that, they won't build it in Java.
From scratch. Yeah. Well, my understanding is that the history of Minecraft is that it essentially was started because Notch was teaching himself Java. And
I fully understand that, and then they never moved.
Figure out how to do that. Yeah.
And that's just why I'm bringing that up. Is if they
I
ever do a Minecraft 2, I'm just going to call it.
Yeah,
hopefully it doesn't.
Hopefully it's not Java
built in Java.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just one of those things where it's really interesting to me actually to see how all this stuff plays out, because it's one of those things that it's kind of uncharted territory in terms of funding and expectations. People are. Yeah. All the time, on go to Kickstarter. How many games are on Kickstarter?
So many.
A,
a lot.
B, how many of those get funded?
Oh, we'll talk a little more about Kickstarter
of those that get funded.
In a
how many of the people who who successfully build those games treat them in this kind of a way where they take the funding and use it to build a core gameplay
and then release
it as an early access and kind of add functionality over time. It's one of those things where it's the amount of people who can be successful at it, I think, is going to be much smaller. It's something that's certainly unique to indie development because it's not the kind of behavior that's acceptable on the part of the big developers. If you're making AAA games, releasing a kind of finished AAA game is going to look real bad from the point of view of
look at what's happening with Battlefield 4 right now. Battlefield 4 is getting a lot of negative flack for being claimed to be released before it was actually finished.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it just looks bad to investors. But if the whole point of it is it's an indie game and you guys are just making a game, if people are interested in the game, then they can play if they pay to play. Then I think that kind of can make sense. But I don't know if it's a sustainable model, and if I don't know if it's something that you can then use as a jumping off point to say, we're also going to start making other games. I think that's getting into some really potentially questionable ground in terms of how they're using their money, unless they're getting some other influx of cash from an investor or some other source.
Yeah.
So, my thoughts, if they do end up not doing too much else with Starbound, like they just move on to their other project, I mean, I'm never going to purchase a Chucklefist product ever again.
Yeah.
as someone who
Which would be a
paid.
shame because I have Starbound and I really like Risk of Rain and Wanderlust. I have 3 products that are technically Chucklefish products, 2 that they published in Starbound that they developed.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I have a great time playing Starbound. But like you said, there's a lot of stuff that's not finished.
Oh, yeah.
For me, as someone who plays freakishly left-handed with a mouse, not being able to rebind the
Weirdo.
He
keys
does play like a weirdo.
pisses me off every time I start
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah.
The other thing,
That's gotta be awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
we won't go into the complexities of my keyboard setup right now.
You need at least a bachelor's degree in theoretical physics to start even talking about. You gotta know what a crumpet is before you understand cricket. Anyways,
The difference for me between Minecraft and Starbound is that Minecraft, especially when it was first put out to download, was essentially like a Lego kit.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
When it was first put out, it was for one significantly cheaper than it is now.
Yeah.
It was like
was-
like $5 or $8 or something.
Yeah,
I think it was
I'm
like
pretty sure-
five.
I
It was like-
almost
yeah,
bought
that
it
might be
for
it.
$10 at one point in time, and I was like,
Well,
it
it's
doesn't
like-
seem that complete. Another, I was still waiting
Yeah.
to see how far the beta would go. At the time, I was fine. One day I turned around, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually interested in playing this game. Go look, $25. Well, never mind.
Yeah. No, yeah, like because Meat, he bought it when it was it was like £5 or something. So it came out to like something like $8
Yeah.
eventually.
Wasn't much.
And he got it then. And he hasn't had to pay a dime more since,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Which is great.
Fantastic.
It's really
Yeah.
great for them.
I think I got it when it was
But yeah,
like
it was
$15.
It was pretty much
Yeah.
back then it was it was like you say, like it was pretty much like a Lego kit.
And that's what I play Minecraft for.
Yeah.
I don't really give a shit about building a portal to the end and fighting the dragon.
No, not really.
Whatever. But with Starbound, not only do you kind of need to go through the progression of the game,
Yeah.
there's not too much to do unless you do.
Yeah.
Minecraft, I can entertain myself for 8 hours just digging dirt and building shit.
Yeah.
Starbound, I'm kind of at a stretch after like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I will. I mean, it's the same thing for me with Terraria and Starbound. Like, I will admit that while you can build stuff in those games, for some reason it just doesn't have the same click that Minecraft does. Even that, I mean, I don't build a whole lot in Minecraft even to begin with, but I build way more vehemently and more like passionately in Minecraft than I do in Terraria or Starbound.
I think it's about how easy it is to get building, really. For me, at least. In
and
Minecraft,
it's also the case of that. I think it also has something to do with that. Your first car is always your favorite. Your first love is always your favorite. Like it was the first game to
Don't tell my wife.
really do that. Sorry. It was like it was the first game to like even real Lego games came out that were almost not as much as a virtual Lego set as Minecraft was.
Yeah.
So it was like it was the first game to really do that. I think that has something to do with it at least. And what else do you think had to do with it?
Oh, that's pretty much. I was just gonna say it's really fast to get into Minecraft. You can jump into a server, nothing on you. Within 10 minutes, you have yourself a pickaxe, you have yourself a shovel, you have yourself an axe, and you have yourself a little dirt hut. And then the zombies strike,
Yeah.
and you quickly put yourself in a bigger dirt hut.
I think the one thing also about Starbound that makes it not as much to me is the fact that given the science fiction nature of the game, since you're hopping between planets, I feel like I can't get attached to a house. I feel like the house that you can
Yes.
get attached to is your
Yeah.
spaceship,
Yeah,
but
but
you
there's
can't
not
really do a
enough
lot with
room.
it. Yeah, you can't really do a lot with it.
You
There's
can
not
do
a
what
lot
I
of
did.
room.
I put hardwood floors in my spaceship.
Yeah, you put hardwood floors in my spaceship.
No, I did.
You know what would be really cool actually is if you could use as like later on in the game if you had like your your home world or whatever.
Yeah.
If like the first world that you built on, you got like a beacon, and while you had to travel to other worlds, you could like warp back
That
to
actually
your
is a
home
thing.
world.
That actually is a thing. You can set a planet as home, and you can warp back to that planet instantaneously. You can actually either warp your ship straight to it, or you can just beam straight to your. Now you can beam straight to your
Okay.
own planet from your teleporter too.
See, and that's something that I think kind of helps resolve that difference where
Yeah.
like, when we were playing
Yeah,
it,
a little bit,
I
yeah.
felt exactly the same way. Like I built some cool shit, and then as soon as it as soon as it struck me that it was like, oh, we're going to be leaving here before too long so we can actually progress to higher level stuff.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to keep working on refining this, structure that I've been building here or do anything cool with it. 'Cause it's like, well, I'm just leaving anyways. And once I leave, I'm not going to be probably coming back to this level 1 area. Like, there's not a whole lot of reason to.
I think that's one of the big parts about it for me is in Minecraft, one of the things I love doing, and it's one of the things I liked about like Terraria that, of course, I'm not having as much love for in Starbound, is that I love the exploration. Like, I love just running out and finding random caves in Minecraft and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about Minecraft is the way that its system is built is you're never outclassed. Like, you're never like, oh, I can't go into this cave because it's never going to have anything useful for me. And in Terraria, that is true to a certain extent in that Terraria's divided its map into levels, where to get better stuff, you have to go further down. So it's like you might find a cave that doesn't go very deep in Terraria, but you're going to go find another... But what you can do is either... If that cave is big enough, you can keep exploring that huge cave, or just dig down until you find cooler and better stuff. Whereas with Starbound, I feel like with the way that I enjoy exploration in that game, a planet becomes obsolete very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like once I get to a point where I'm outside of that tech tier, the planet becomes obsolete to me because there's nothing left for me to explore on that planet that's gonna be useful. And there's already not, there's already not a lot in that game that's not fully fleshed out. Like, towns don't really do anything for you, like, at all.
The NPCs don't really do anything.
Huh? Yeah, but the NPCs don't do much.
Yeah, the NPCs don't do a lot.
Actually, what made me a little bit sad is that the NPCs don't put up more of a fight if you with them. like, I was pretty early game when they're like, you come up, you roll up on them with your weapon out, and they're like, put your weapon away.
Put your weapon away.
It's like, what are you gonna do? And you hit them like 3 times and they die.
Well, even then, if you put your weapon away, you could start like tearing apart their whole village brick by brick, and nobody's gonna give a
Yeah. when we were playing that through that first time when I kept doing all my fence shit, we found that random girl in her house, and I walk in the house, I'm like, can you do anything? No. Kill.
Yeah,
hey guys, we have a house.
Hey guys, we got a house now. Devin has the Morrowind philosophy to real estate.
Yeah.
If I kill its occupant, it's my house.
Yeah. If I put a bucket on your head and steal stuff, I'm not really stealing.
But to kind of relate what my problems are with Chucklefish deciding that they suddenly can spend new resources on a different product. I mean, you take a look at I'll compare it to let's compare what's going on with Chucklefish to something that happens at least similarly in another company, maybe just a slightly different way. And I want to reference CCP. And when CCP started developing other games besides Eve, they started hiring on new developers to work on new projects. Eve had been out for like six or so years at this point, like 5 or 6 years. So it's like Eve's been out for a long time, and a lot of people had that fear of, oh, this means that development on Eve is going to slow down. Eve is an MMO for those who don't know, who happen to be listening. So it's a game that is in constant development. They're constantly trying to add new stuff and balance things and things like that. And so a lot of people were like, oh, this is gonna, this means Eve's on the back burner. This means Eve's not gonna see a lot of updates and Eve is gonna go down the drain. And they're like, no, we're not taking anything away from Eve. Eve will continue to go at its current pace. And the thing about that is, okay, Eve is going to keep going at its current pace. What its current pace is an MMO that has been out for 6 years and has seen a steady increase in its subscriber base every year. Yeah, they're not putting up WoW numbers, but they very rarely had a negative quarter.
It wasn't
they never
a
had
huge
a quarter
increase, but it was a fairly steady increase. It wasn't like they showed ridiculous numbers like you said, but at the same time, like they were making modest gains essentially. all the time.
So they demonstrated with the resources that they had already been dedicating to Eve that Eve can be successful. And
well,
so
it was a game that was
when
evolving,
they
but it
come
was
into-
done. Like,
oh yeah, and yeah,
it was
it's
a game
finished
that didn't have half finished shit that was in the published.
You're not
versions
gonna walk into Eve and then suddenly one day, you weren't gonna walk into Eve a month later and suddenly skills were gonna be completely different or skills weren't gonna be in the game at all. It's like, no, this was the game. They're adding to it, but they're not gonna be changing it like very heavily.
the gameplay
Whereas
itself. Well, it's changed over time, but it's changed incrementally, and a lot of the
Very
gameplay
slightly.
ideas, remain the same. The changes that they've made haven't made it a different game entirely.
Well, and
the core progression of the game, for instance, has not changed.
Yeah.
They've changed a little bit of how like they've done some things like remove learning skills, but like you still have statistics that affect how fast you train skills. That's still the progression in Eve, even ever since its beta.
It's kind of interesting to look at Eve as an example too, because it's like for their stuff, it's always been iterative, but it's mostly been additions.
Yeah.
They don't change much stuff unless it's something they find that with later editions something has become very unbalanced
Or
Yeah.
obsolete.
or obsolete. Yeah, it's
Like
it's
they
things
found-
like
they were
for a long
finding
time
in the
skills.
current-
You had to go in and set your skill, set
Yeah.
your skill. Set
You
your
actually
training,
had
set
to
your
log
training.
in to set
Now,
it.
and then eventually they added in the queuing system, which was a huge addition to it.
Oh yeah, it was.
And when they started into their new
immensely
projects and they were like, we're going to be working on some other projects, turned out it was still another addition to Eve. It was Dust.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Dust
The first
514.
one that they revealed was actually kind of
It's
Eve on foot. It was
it's
Dust
Eve on foot.
514.
It's a thing that's linked in with the Eve MMO. You get
Yeah.
to
Right.
play it on your PlayStation, and you're doing stuff on the planet's surface while somebody else playing actual Eve gets to do stuff from orbit.
Yeah.
And those things will interact with each other. I remember one of the times we were playing, when I was playing the beta, Albert was in his thing. Meat
Albert was up in
thing.
his ship.
And he was there able to provide. It was a weird way of support at the time. I don't remember how much of it went, but I got one of the orbital
Yeah,
drop
the
things
orbital
that they
drops.
had, for some extra special stuff. But it was because I had him on my friends list, he had me on his, and then we could interact while he was still playing his MMO,
Yeah.
and I was playing my shooter, and yet we were still connected. But it was, on the whole, it was still an addition to Eve.
Well, yeah, you definitely could look at it that way. That Dust was definitely like pretty much like an addition to Eve instead of like a completely separate standalone thing. And it's a thing where they had a history of being able to put out product with
Yes.
the current number of resources that they are currently dedicating to Eve for several years now. And then when they started having extra resources, they were like, we think we've got enough extra monetary income that we don't have to take anything away from Eve, and we can start development on something else now.
Yeah.
Chucklefish is saying,
Chucklefish does not
we
have
haven't
that
finished
history
this yet, but we're going to go ahead and start developing
we haven't
something
finished
else
this
now.
yet, but we've come across a butt ton of money from people either getting it on the early access or from some new
Investor
outside
or
investment
anything.
source. However they've come across the money, it's like, oh, we haven't finished this game yet. But now that we have all this extra money, instead of trying to finish this game, we're going to start work on another.
I see. I see where you're coming from now. When you were talking about it at first, I was kind of like, well, what if they're using extra money? But now I see your point. They don't have the development history and the long running going.
Yeah, like
it seems the wrong time for them to try and expand.
Yeah.
Yes, very much yeah.
They're Krispy
it's like
Kreming this shit, man.
You're getting too greedy at that point. Yeah, you're digging too deep. You're gonna summon the Balrog, and then you're gonna be up shit's creek when you never finish Starbound. And then, like Kyle said, I agree. I agreed with Kyle. As much as I now own 3 Starbound products or 3 Chucklefish products. If Starbound never gets finished, it will be the last Starbound product I own. Yeah, it's the last Chucklefish product I own. And so, it's weird to see them do that.
At that point, then everything you buy from them is a bet on whether or not they're going to finish it.
Right.
If everybody who's done the pre-order or bought any of the early access stuff, they're making a bet. They're saying, I believe in you, Chucklefish, that if I give you this, then you are going to be able to provide me with a real full game, and as part of that deal, I'm going to get access to it before it's done. So I agree to look the other way at the blemishes till it is done, and you agree that you get my money early, and everybody wins.
Yeah.
But if anybody in that, if they're able to, as in their part of the relationship, take the money and effectively kind of cut and
Take
run,
the money and run.
Yeah, what's the recourse for the
Then-
consumer? At that
yeah,
point?
then every time after that, then the consumer has no choice but to wonder whether or not they're going to really finish it.
Yeah, well, because and the thing is that Chucklefish does not have a very strong history of delivering on time, especially not when it comes to Starbound. I brought this up in my forum post that I posted that we were promised a 2013 beta to people who had pre-ordered the game. This was back in like January or February of 2013. We were promised a 2013 beta. The beta came open in the first week of December. That's not a 2013 beta. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. That is not a 2013
that's
beta.
just
They
That's
did the
that's
minimum
being
they
born
needed
in
to do.
1999 and calling yourself a 90s kid. You're not a 90s kid. You didn't even have memories in the 90s.
I
You
was
were
born
barely-
December 31st, 1999. I'm an 90s kid.
Like you're not like that is not a 2013 beta. It's not, and especially December is for most people a very socially busy time of year.
Yeah,
it is the
it's a hectic
biggest
time.
holiday season of the year. A lot of people are spending time with family and friends, doing stuff for like Christmas and stuff like that. And so
maybe
it's
that's
like
maybe that's not their target
if
audience.
they're in a retail, if
People
they're
with family and friends
Well,
are not.
well,
in
no,
their target
even
audience.
outside of that,
they're targeting.
They
the
don't make good
neckbeard.
beta
if they
testers.
have people if they have purchasers who work in a retail industry, they're never going to get to play Starbound over the month of December. Like as someone who
Yeah.
worked in retail for several years, like that is a really crappy time to deliver this beta that you promised to all of your early adapters. That's the worst. That is the worst. In my opinion, they faltered on that promise. That is a promise they did not keep to me. They already have one notch against them of not keeping their promise, and now they're not doing anything to convince me they can keep their
Deliver.
promise of actually finishing this freaking game. Because I didn't show you guys all. I didn't let you guys read all the changes that they're planning to make to the progression are pretty big. While I like them, they are big, and I'm
They're
not
gonna be
convinced
taxing
they
to do.
can do it in a reasonable amount of time with just what they have. And to hear that with all of this extra money they've made off of these pre-orders, we're gonna go make another game instead of starting to finish Starbound.
On a similar line of disappointment,
Uh,
was Broken Age. from Double
I was
Fine.
going to bring that up.
That was-
That was the next thing I was going to bring up to talk
So-
more about the like Kickstarter aspect of all
Yeah.
of this.
So when Broken Age started, it wasn't even.
When Broken
There
Age
wasn't
started,
an
it wasn't
idea.
even Broken Age.
It was
let's-
Double Fine wants to
let's
make an
start off
adventure.
this
That's why it was
train,
called
yeah.
Double Fine Adventure for the Kickstarter.
Let's start
they
off this
asked
train.
for $400,000. They got how much was it? $2.5 million.
No, it was like 3.
Was it?
It was close to 3, maybe even 4.
A huge amount of money.
They got
Let's-
way more than they asked
Yeah.
for.
So,
way more.
They were like,
Colossally
we
more.
have this. So after that happened, they were like, okay, so we have these great ideas for this game. And we're going to start that. And many moons passed, and then they said, okay, so we've got this great game in development. However,
We ran out of money.
we ran out of money, sort of. And what they did
No,
was
not a-
As someone
I'm looking at time
not
face.
not up on the
No,
Okay.
Double
not a joke.
Fine Adventure
Not a
news.
joke.
So yeah, so this is what happened. They basically said we ran out of money. So what they are doing and what they've done, I guess, is the better way of putting it.
You can buy the game right now.
You can buy the game now, but it's a part one. They made it episodic.
It's part one of part.
Part one of two.
I think it's going to be 2 parts.
So with the point of the sales they get from the first half of the game will go to funding development of the second half of the game. Now, if you went into the Kickstarter, you still get the second half. It's not a totally separate thing. You still get it.
Well, at least there's that.
It's just a really interesting way of breaking it up where they said, well, we don't have enough money to finish the game, so we're going to go ahead and give you the first half. We're going to finish the first half and use that money to make the second half.
Yeah.
I think
After
there- I
they
think there
got
comes a point
how
where
much
push
more?
goals
Almost
too
10
much.
times the
Like,
amount of
We're
money.
going to talk about that definitely. I just think the thing I found very funny about it was Tim Schafer in the like spiel that he gave when they wanted to start this Kickstarter. He gave this whole big spiel about how he wanted to do this like old school point and click style adventure game, and and we couldn't find a publisher who wanted to back that. We couldn't find a publisher who wanted to back that. They wanted it to be a shooter. They wanted it to be this. And after this happened, it's like, well, maybe no publishers back you because you're terrible with your money, apparently. Like, you got way more than you asked for this game. Like, what if you had only gotten the 400,000? Would we have ever seen this game come out? Like, would you have run out of money 3 months in and be like, well, sorry guys, we gave it the old college try, but we apparently put all of our money into lumber futures? And
well, I wonder if it's a case of that, or if it's a case of they had a design document for 400,000. They had an idea. They knew what they were going to do.
And they let it get blown out of proportion.
And then they saw the zeros, and they were like, "Oh shit!" And they just went
I know some
crazy.
of that money goes to one of the stretch
started
goals. They're
Coke
doing
parties.
a documentary about the development of the game. I know, and like they got a couple of decently big name actors, like Elijah Wood does a voice for the game.
Okay,
like
I actually, when I started playing it, I was like, that really sounds like Elijah Wood, but I didn't feel like looking it up. So it is.
But that's the thing is maybe in the history.
Wise investment, though.
Well, yeah, no, that's the thing is maybe in history you have worked with publishers in the past and they gave you money and you came back to them 6 months later and went, we ran out of that money. Can you give us more? And they were like, what the do you mean you ran out of that money? We gave you a lot of money that you could have done a lot of stuff with that we've given to other companies and they've done more with.
Yeah.
It's like, don't get me wrong. This is a point-and-click adventure game. This is not
there's
necessarily
no reason.
a game you need to hire out a slew of programmers because you're trying to program some digital masterpiece that is a wonderment of technology. This is a point-and-click adventure game. There are single people that are able to put out point-and-click adventure games and put them out on Steam for $5-10.
A lot of what happens...
A lot of your money there goes to your art assets, mostly.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say.
And I'm sorry,
of the point and
but
clicking ends up having a lot more interaction, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, if you played the old, I'm going to use Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis as an example.
Oh yeah,
If
the
you
old
go-
LucasArts.
if you say,
just
I'm gonna go-
any of the old LucasArts.
Yeah, when the ones that use the Scrum engine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You say go pick up an item. They walk up to it. You see their hand go out and then back down, and the item has disappeared from the screen. Is now in your inventory. In this, it's more of a you actually pick the item up and put it away kind of thing, where they've put more effort into how the engine feels.
Yeah.
More
but
than just I'm pointing.
It's 2D animation, and I'm sorry, but that much money into a strictly 2D point-and-click adventure game, I really have to wonder where all that money went, because 2D animation is not hard, in that it's been done for, 50, 60 years now. It's been being done for so long. People are really good at it, and especially with digital tools. It is immensely easier
to do.
Unless they're hand drawing everything.
Stuff,
it's like, especially with current stuff, it's like, okay, build yourself a 2D model, make a skeleton for it. You can have
and then you can manipulate that skeleton for all the animations.
And so unless they're hand drawing everything,
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
I don't know. Maybe we should watch the documentary.
I think
maybe the documentary will explain where all the money went.
Right. I feel like really what probably
just
is
down at the horse track
going on here is
where the money went.
It's like
Part
saying,
1 of 2.
I feel like the issue is
just hopefully they don't hobbit that thing and make a third part.
They expected a certain amount of money, and like you said, they had kind of a layout of how we're going to spend this much money to build this game. They got way more, and they felt the pressure like, oh shit, well now we have to build like a several $1,000,000 game instead of a $400,000 game. Yeah. And they set about building a game that they didn't intend to build from the get-go. And that's a dangerous kind of place to be, because on the one hand, the people are going to be like, yeah, well, we gave you way more than you needed. Why is it not better? But on the other hand, it's like, well, yeah, but you were technically paying us for a $400,000 game. Like,
we told you we were going to make this $400,000 game.
Like, the game is
still
the
gonna
game.
Make that $400,000
and maybe
game.
with more money you can do more, but there comes a point where you're betraying the original vision and doing something else. And I feel like if you're doing that and you haven't rigorously come up with ways to handle the money differently if you get way more, then at some point you're just kind of going blind. And I feel like that's probably the kind of thing that happened to them while they were moving forward with this.
And I think that's why Kickstarter has implemented some new rules, and not specifically blame Double Fine and what they've done, but a lot of their new game stuff is you can't just I have a game idea, I'm gonna put this up there. Now you actually have to have a working product.
Well, because like that brings up a whole thing with I think it was at least a big problem with Kickstarter. It has become a little bit less of a problem ever since things like the Double Fine Adventure story. But like when Double Fine Adventure went up, they had like we said, like as far as what they told their Kickstarter backers, at least, like they didn't have a story. They weren't like, here's this kind of synopsis of what the story is going to be. They didn't have screenshots of this is the engine we're working with, or these are the artists we're working with. Like they had nothing. It was just like Tim Schafer's like, I want to make an adventure game and nobody will give me money. Will all of you give me money? And tons and tons of people went in on this. When there were games on Kickstarter at the time, and still are games that were by completely independent people that had they had videos that showed off, like they had working engine stuff, like it was showing them playing the game at least in some sort of tech demo respect. Some of them were like almost finished, and they're just like, we just need like the last bit of money to either get this up on Xbox Live Arcade, that last bit of publishing capital that they need to really
to put it out there.
And those didn't get, and tons of those products went by the wayside. And it's like Double Fine came around. It's like just because it was Tim Schafer, that everybody gave him a bunch of money. And I'll never forget one of the things I heard at the time that started was like, this is like if Steven Spielberg came up to you and was just like, I want to make a movie, give me $30 million. It's like, come back to me with anything more than just, I want to make a movie, and maybe we can talk about whether or not I'm going to give you any money. And to really drive that point home recently, I think this also shows part of kind of the problem that it had to start with. 2/3 of game projects from 2009 to 2013 have not delivered yet. 2/3 of them. And I mean, you get the big ones like Wasteland 2 and Star Citizen. Like, part of me really hopes that like Wasteland 2 and Pillars of Eternity and Star Citizen, like, part of me really hopes those are terrible when they come out. Because all these people did was give an ass ton of money to somebody who had been a game developer in the past with like the Wasteland 2, they're like, we want to make a sequel to Wastelands. Okay, do you have game systems worked out? Do you have game concepts? Do you have other developers to work with you? Like, can you show me some sort of tech demo? Something that shows that you've already started work on this, and it's not just like an idea you had one night and now you're asking me for $3 million. It's like, I don't understand how these people can back. I guess it's hard for me to understand how, as the culture that I'm a part of, the gaming nerd culture, can give all of this money to, Wasteland 2 before all it was just a title, or the Double Fine Adventure before it even had a title. And yet there's tons and tons of indie game projects on Kickstarter that have like working demos that you can actually go download, and they're like, we just want to finish this game. We already have a demo. Like, here's a demo for you. And those products don't get the like 20,000 that they're asking for. Well, Double Fine Adventure got way over what it asked for, and then
the
ran out of
bankability.
Money. Yeah.
They have a track record. Tim Schafer has a history. I mean, he's kind of a name in the game industry, and he's very famous for putting out that specific type of game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when he says, I want to make another X, and people picture their favorite point-and-click adventure, be it Grim Fandango or
Full Throttle, Grim Fandango.
Yeah, I think that part of it is people... is exactly that. Is he says, he brings to the table, I want to do a new point-and-click with no extra information. It really does let the imagination run wild, and everybody's, first thought is to their favorite thing that he's done.
Yeah.
They're going to ignore any problems that have come up with other things that he's worked on that they played where it was like, oh yeah, that was good, but it wasn't my favorite, or, there were problems with whatever. It's always going to run
Or-
immediately to,
or
he did
maybe they
this.
might
that
look
could
at-
be awesome. And
Yeah.
so
You know,
it's a lot
he
easier to get money
He
that way.
claims no publishers want to work with him because it's a point-and-click adventure game, and maybe no publishers want to work with him because he's Tim Schafer. You know,
Well, yeah, there's
There is that chance.
there's that chance. Especially recently, you look at it and go, okay, the fact that you haven't gotten more big publisher backing might be a little more apparent now than it ever was. That maybe it has less to do with the games you develop and the way you handle yourself as a company. You know, it's hard to get EA involved when you go, okay, we blew all of our money on Broken Age, and we got way more than we were even counting on.
yeah. It just sounds incomprehensible
It-
to
it
have that
certainly
kind of
does.
a budget and run out.
It definitely does.
Did you ever play
But-
Big?
But at a certain point, like Benjamin was talking about, if they wanted $400,000 and they get $3 million, if they try and stick to the original design of the game and what they promised, how is everybody going to feel when they just, what do they do with that extra
See,
2 whatever
I would
million
love-
dollars?
Then there's just more people buying into what is essentially
Yeah,
a $400,000.
I would love
Right.
for a game to come along that, or a
Then they do
Kickstarter
well,
a
and
game
maybe they
project
can
to come along.
seed that towards another project later on or something.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel bad about it at all. People will bitch and moan about it, but I feel like what is, like I said, what has essentially happened at that point is there's $400 worth of need or $400,000 worth of need, and way more people than that have bought into it, and the product should still be that $400,000 product.
I would love to. I agree.
Because that's what they agreed to when they were buying into it.
I would
Yeah.
love to see more game Kickstarters come along and not stretch goal a damn thing, so they can actually get a product out. Like that's a lot of like I just read you the statistic. For the last 4 years, 2/3 of game projects have not delivered.
I feel like feature creep is a really big problem for crowdsource stuff because there's no
Absolutely.
hard deadlines on things. And so the problem is they go until they run out of money until when the deadline is.
Yeah.
So people pay all this money in. There's, X stretch goals tacked onto the additional goal price if they got past it. And instead of sticking to what their original vision was, there's this nasty feature creep where they keep tacking shit on because they feel like they have to build it until it's as good as it could possibly be, instead of building it until it's, quote unquote,
What
done.
they said.
Yeah.
Until it's what
A finished working
what they were
product.
trying to pitch.
I would much rather have had Tim Schafer say, you know what? I mean, we're going to throw a little bit of extra money into this game just to make sure it's polished up real nice and good, but we're not going to add any stretch goals. And this just means with the success of this Kickstarter and hopefully the success of this next game, we will then not have to worry about kickstarting our next point-and-click adventure that we want to do.
Exactly.
We can just do it.
Yeah.
We'll just have the profits from Kickstarter and the eventual sales, which, I mean, at that point, anything above what you kind of ask for the Kickstarter, you can pretty much just say that'll
Should
just
mostly
contribute
be
to the
profit.
sales. It's just the sales at that point. Like,
Yeah.
that's just more to your,
Yeah.
that's incorporating a sales number at that point. And you're just like, we're just going to take all of this sales profit from this game, and next time we won't have to come begging and pleading to you for $400,000 to make a point-and-click adventure game. We will just have the
capital.
ability to do it ourselves.
Yeah. That's actually kind of the other thing I was thinking about was, some developer comes up with a game, it costs them X number of dollars to make said
Yeah.
game. Now I may be giving them the money after the fact. It might be some AAA title. I'm just going to
Yeah.
use that as an example.
Yeah.
We're okay with DLC and paying for it apparently.
Yeah.
If I go buy a game, it's $60 when it comes out. I'm not expecting them to continue developing on that game for free for me. I'm not expecting them to continue making the game better and better. I'm expecting them to put out $10 DLC down the line.
It depends on the
So,
game for me.
well,
but
Yeah, well,
but to be fair,
but I'm
it's
using
not
this as an
necessarily
example of-
unreasonable.
yeah, it's funny that we look at it like that, but then we look at something like Kickstarter where they say and even if Tim Schafer had a plan, if they said we have this plan, we have a couple stretch goals, and then they got way more than they planned to, and then if everyone expected them to just, well, look at all this money you made from Kickstarter, you have to make a better game now, seems unreasonable to ask at the same time. So
Yeah.
if I had, and I didn't invest in it, and
I didn't.
Yeah.
I haven't invested in any of the big 3, Wasteland, Star Citizen, or Double Fine Adventure. I
Yeah.
didn't invest in any of those.
I've bought into a couple Kickstarters, and both of those
I
have
have.
delivered. Not games, but both of them have delivered.
I've got in 3 Kickstarters. 2 of them have delivered.
One of them, the only reason
One
I
of them's
really
still
got
waiting
into
on.
it was because they basically had a working product, and they said we just need to fund the development run, and it was half the price than waiting for it to come out
Yeah.
in Best Buy.
And that's the thing too, is I think that's one of the things with when we're getting back a little bit to our Starbound discussion we were talking about, that kind of links back around to the whole reason to get into Minecraft early, because you can get Minecraft for $8 as opposed to the like 20 some it is now
Yeah.
to get it now. It's like you got it for a third of the price. And with a lot of these early access games and Kickstarter games, I'm seeing a little bit on Kickstarter, but not really with early access. Like, where's the real incentive to get in on this early? Like, where's the Minecraft level of incentive to get in on this game before it comes out?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, if Starbound releases for, I mean, granted, I got it for cheaper because we went in on it as a group, so we got it for a cheaper price. But like, if the game releases to $15 standard price, part of me is gonna feel a little cheated that I didn't get some sort of incentive for giving you this money up front.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, and definitely there's that thing of Minecraft of if you bought Minecraft when it was out, you could go then play it immediately. You could play it in your browser if you wanted to at the time for free.
Yeah.
It wasn't fully featured, but that was kind of the point. It was here's a taste of it, here's a demo.
Yeah.
I got Starbound when it came out to pre-release or to early release on Steam.
Yeah.
So I invested it at a point where it was still something I could then go immediately play.
Yeah.
You could actually do the same thing with Broken Age. If you when it hit Steam, you were actually able to go and buy a pre-release version of the main game before it came out. You got beta access to it a little bit after those who invested in the Kickstarter did.
Yeah.
But there's kind of throwing back to what you were saying about there's tons of games that have tech demos and a bunch of stuff done. There's a game I went into called Reset. It doesn't have a real set date on when it's going to come out. But it's been in development by a couple of guys for a while now, and
Is it like the spiritual successor to Reboot?
No.
Just checking.
Very clever though.
Whoever owns the rights to Reboot, bring that shit back.
I'm apparently the only one that of my friends, a little sidetrack here. I'm apparently the only one out of my friends that, I liked Reboot as a kid, but watching it as an adult
it's
was an
horrible.
absolute
I watched it.
travesty. It's a terrible show.
It's
I'm not
pretty bad.
saying
I don't know, I can
bring
still
Reboot
get
back.
into
okay
it.
when I was a kid, but it's really a terrible show.
I'm
I don't
not
know. I
saying
can
bring
still get into
Reboot
it.
back as the series that it was. Make it
Do
better.
bring it back and do it
Definitely.
right.
I
Yeah,
apologize
bring
for
it back and do it.
derailing this conversation.
Anyways.
Anyway, so there's another game I went into called Reset, but the only reason I really went into that one is because they have a set goal. They don't have any stretch goals. They say, here's the product we're making. We just need money to continue funding this so we can finish the game and get it out there. And, my initial perk for it was you get the game when you get it. Now I actually get an extra digital copy.
Hey,
So
I mean, and that's cool. I
I'll
mean,
probably
like,
give it to you.
putting in extra money into like a Kickstarter to get like extra copies of the game. That's exactly what I did with the one game that I bought that I got in on Kickstarter that hasn't been delivered yet. I paid extra to get 2 copies of the game and their first 2 copies of their first expansion pack that they have planned.
Right.
So it's like, and it was cheaper than 2 individual Kickstarter backers, and is also going to be, and even on top of that, the individual Kickstarter backer of getting 1 copy of the game is cheaper than it's going to be at full retail price, So it's like, that's fantastic that I get, an extra copy of the game, that I can get the game for cheaper, and that's cool.
That even makes me think
And
of...
they had gameplay that they showed. Like, they had tech gameplay that they showed off. They were like, this is the game. It's very, it's very rough right now, clearly, but here it is. It actually is a thing that we have, we have an executable that we can run. It's very shitty right now, and you wouldn't pay for it right now, but this is the reason why we need some money, is because we have this product that we want to turn into a real thing.
Yeah. It makes me also think of Season Pass DLC.
Oh, God, I hate the whole concept of Season Pass DLC.
We have some DLC planned. One of them is already done. That's in the can. That's going to be coming out soon. We have the next one in development, and then we have 2 more planned, but we haven't started those yet.
Yeah. No, yeah,
It's for them now.
I hate the whole concept of season pass DLC.
But it's the same thing as we're looking at right now. Of you're showing me, you just put your game out,
Yeah,
so I've got a game in hand. Now give me
True.
$20, and over the next year, I'll give you 4 more things to expand that gameplay.
true. To be fair, it is a full game that you have to go. Oh,
Yeah.
we want to give us $20 more, and we'll make this game a little
In
better.
comparison, Season Pass DLC doesn't seem like such a...
It's
bad
not. Yeah,
thing.
it's not. It doesn't seem as bad in comparison, but that does not make it good.
Yeah.
I'm still
Tooth
okay with
decay
some
is
of
not
it.
as bad as like I don't know full on Ebola or cancer, but that doesn't mean tooth decay is good.
awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some things where I've definitely, appreciated getting the Season Pass for Borderlands 2, for instance,
I would say there are. Well, it's one of those things where there are a few games that have done good season passes, just like there are games that have done good Kickstarters. There are
Yeah.
games that got kickstarted and have delivered and
Broken
had
Egg,
all their
wait.
good stuff. But it's the case of okay, yeah, there are outliers, but the norm is not that. Like, yeah, the Borderlands 2 season pass seems like it's been a deal. Like they've put out a lot of DLC, and it seems like good DLC.
Well, their Season Pass only covered 4 major packs. It didn't give you like the Necromancer or a bunch of... There's a bunch of little things that they're like, no, we still want you to pay us for that. Which kind of...
Yeah.
Which then, if you turn around and look at the Game of the Year edition, if I were to go and buy the base game and the Season Pass
yeah.
and get all that DLC, I will pay... And then buy the individual DLC that's missing from the Game of the Year
Yeah.
edition, I will pay more than the Game of the Year edition. At this moment in time, I can still pay more for it, even though there's the Game of the Year. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. to me.
I mean, it's one of those things where when the Game of the Year edition first comes out, I can see people like, well, because like when the Game of the Year edition, I bought the Game of the Year edition of Oblivion on the 360 when it came
Yeah.
out, and it came with Knights of the Nine, Shivering Isles, and I think a couple
The
other
horse
small-
armor.
No, it didn't come with that.
What?
It came with I want to say it came with a couple of other small DLCs,
Yeah.
but it was kind of the same. It
So
was
gotta buy horse armor.
it was kind of the same
horse
deal.
armor.
Well, I think at that point
Those-
they were just as ashamed of horse armor as we were of them.
They just built it into the game and didn't talk about
They
it.
were like, okay, don't mention horse armor anymore. It's a sore subject. But no, like I want to say it came with Knights of the Nine, Shivering Isles, and I think the Mehrunes Razor DLC. I want to say those are the DLCs it came with. Everything else you still had to get, which was
Yeah.
fine for me because I had actually bought all the other stuff individually, but I had not bought Knights of the Nine or Shivering Isles, mainly because a lot of the other DLC came out way early in Oblivion's life cycle.
Yeah.
And when Knights of the Nine and Shivering Isles came out, I wasn't as interested in quite going back to Oblivion. But then when the Game of the Year edition came out and I found it at GameStop for like $50, I was like, oh, yeah, sure, cool. I'll get the base game and all, because I was actually playing Albert's copy of the game. I didn't have my own copy. So I was like, oh, I'll get my own copy of the game and this extra DLC. Yeah, sure, why not? So, and I understand, like, in the beginning of a Game of the Years, the first couple of months, you want to give people a reason to buy the Game of the Year edition. But eventually, you do kind of reach that point where you're like, okay, why is everything else just as expensive? Or why do you even have things listed separately anymore? Like, why do you not just clear out your listings and go, here's the Borderlands 2 Game of the Year edition. This is the only copy of Borderlands 2 you can buy right now, but you get everything with it. So who the are you complaining to?
Yeah.
Take it
Well,
and like it.
That's a perfect example. I bought Castlevania Lords of Shadow when it came out on Steam because the
Yeah.
only available edition was the
Ultimate edition.
yeah,
or
it was the
something like
ultimate
that,
edition.
Yeah.
And guess what? It all came with.
It came with the extra DLC that the 360 version had.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with I want to say it was The Witcher 2 when it came out.
I have the enhanced edition.
Yeah, the enhanced edition. It came out and it had extra features that had been already. Now, with Witcher 2, I believe that they were just enhancements that had been made to the game over the course of the game's life cycle, and not necessarily extra DLC. But I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, like that. At a certain point, you have to ask yourself, okay, when should the Game of the Year edition just become the edition that you buy and you
Yeah.
get all of the extra stuff by now? Like
Right.
you've sucked all of your money out of your early adapters that you're going to, and now you should just let people buy the full Game
Yeah.
of the Year editions.
Mostly I brought up the Borderlands 2 one because I look at it like, if I buy the season pass,
That's like, I'm not sure. Let me actually
don't
check.
get everything.
Because
they call them season passes, which is the interesting thing to me, because there's no length of time that a quote-unquote season runs.
Yeah.
You can still buy a season
They
pass
could just
for
call
the
it
Borderlands.
the DLC bundle.
Yeah.
Nope. I was wondering, because I remember they had released a Dungeon Defenders like complete collection, so I was wondering if they did that with Dungeon Defenders, but now Dungeon Defenders still you need to buy all of this stuff separately.
You know what? I bet that whole season pass naming
Anyways.
thing is the fault of focus groups.
Who was the first person
Somebody
to
in
make a
marketing
season
made that
pass?
shit up.
I want to say the first time a season pass came out, it was EA. It was an EA game. And I mean, if you want to take
And the DLC that it
if you
came
wanna
with was
talk about
only
the
available
first
for a year. After that, you had to pay
pass
to buy
that was
it.
ever released, I'm pretty sure it was not DLC related. I'm pretty sure it was the Telltale Back to the Future game because it was episodic. It was one of the first episodic games released,
Right.
and I'm pretty sure you could buy a season pass of that.
But I
game.
wouldn't consider those
And
to
you
be.
got all
I wouldn't
five
consider that to be DLC.
episodes.
I want to know when it first
No,
got
yeah.
applied
But
to
as
being
far
DLC.
as far as being a DLC, I want to say it was an EA game that did it first, but I don't know.
I think they started with like locking out multiplayer content first, where like if you bought the game new,
the used copy,
yeah,
locking out multiplayer.
you got a code.
That's right. You know what? I think that's what it was. That's where it first came, was when they started locking out multiplayer, and you could buy like a season pass, and that got you into multiplayer and like also like DLC stuff.
According to
Yeah,
this Giant
I wanna
Bomb
say.
article, the first one to really do a season pass that wasn't an episodic thing was Rockstar with LA Noire.
Really?
Yeah, so they had a
Huh.
Rockstar pass. It wasn't called a season pass. It was
Yeah.
called a Rockstar pass, and it came with.
No, we're looking for season pass.
Yeah,
We're being
Not Rockstar
specific.
Pass.
I
No.
will
We're
stand.
looking
No,
for semantics.
I agree. That
that's kind of what the argument is based on.
a little bit, considering the fact that I said the first season pass that ever came out was not DLC related, and we decided that didn't count, even though that is actually a season pass.
That's what I said. Season pass DLC. When I go to the page on Steam and I
Yeah.
look at a game, I look at BioShock Infinite or something like that, and I see season pass for DLC.
yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Interesting. I would not have thought that would have been LA Noire. Never would have come into my mind. It's the first game. I thought it was some
yeah.
EA title.
I forgot that they even released like extra cases for that.
Me too.
I kind of forgot
So
about that
did I.
game until just now. So
Yeah, I forgot. I never finished that game. There was some movie we were watching the other day where I was like, oh yeah, I never finished LA Noire.
Just in the middle of a movie.
Yeah,
He was
Like I was watching Barbie's Funtime Adventures, and I was just like, "Yeah, you know what? I never finished LA Noire." And your roommates are like, "What the f?"
okay, I know they're not really connected, but the other day
Rachel and
I was
Kim were just
flipping through a bunch of movie things, and I see Doom, and I'm like, yeah, I never finished Duke Nukem Forever.
That's relatable.
But
Because
still not
Doom
identical.
was a
is
game.
based on a game that is very similar to Duke Nukem. At least
Yeah.
the old ones were. So it's relatable. It's certainly more. It depends on what movie Kyle was watching. Like if
Yeah.
Kyle's watching like L.A. Confidential, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I never watched L.A. Noire," that makes sense. But if he's like watching like Pacific Rim, and he's like, "I never finished L.A. Noire," I have to question the neurons in your brain.
no, it was something 1920s America.
Oh, okay.
I-
See,
Okay,
that's
so-
okay then.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about point of reference, right? It's all about
Context.
point of reference. Context. Always take it out. And so I think that's a good place to wrap this up. I think we can all kind of, I think we can all agree that this whole crowdfunding thing is a veritable minefield that has definitely, I would say, statistically, not delivered on as many things as it has fallen short on. And even some of the things that it has delivered on, not fully, completely.
I would agree. There's room for the format to grow. And,
Yeah.
one of-
And you know, it's
I feel like
one of those
Kickstarter was
things
never
where,
meant for this.
yeah, no, I had a hard time when like Wasteland 2 and Double Fine Adventure and all these big, like from these big name people went up. I'm like, this is not what Kickstarter is for. Kickstarter is for the little
It's for the
no
little
name
indie
guy
guys
in his
Exactly.
basement, coding everything on his own, who there is no, he's working another job and doing this on the side, and that's why he needs this Kickstarter, because he's got bills to pay and he's got some other job that he has to do, and this might like let him take time off of his job, or give him the extra money he might need to
It's not
make
just
this
'cause
a
he likes
reality.
money.
But yeah, it's like I feel like when
I
the
need a $500,000 because I
just
could
really
use $500,000.
I could just use $500,000.
That just makes me think of the XK. There was relevant XKCD.
Oh, of course.
That, of the.
Wasn't
all right.
the Kickstarter so I can get my Kickstarter started or
Yep.
something like that? It was like the Kickstarter so I can make a kick-ass
The
Kickstarter
for the
trailer or
ultimate
something.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that one. That was a good one. But yeah, I was like, that's how, like when Double Fine went and we're like, we want money to make a game. And I'm like, you've done that before. Go do that again. Like, you've talked to people and made games before.
Maybe if they
You can
at
do
least-
it again.
if
You're
they,
gonna find something.
Started the game, started some work on it, then taken it to an investor and gone, look, I know you don't think point and click games are great anymore, but hey, look at this thing we started putting together. And we really think we'll have some
But let me
backers."
put out. But let me go drop a press release that I'm Tim Schafer making a point and click adventure game again, and watch how everybody's panties drops. Like you're Tim Schafer. You are a name.
Yeah, make it happen.
If you're not telling me you could not find any sort of investor, like that's just like you just didn't even try. Like I feel like you didn't try. Who'd you go to? Like EA and they turned you down? You're like, well, we gave it the old college try, guys. We tried out one publisher and they said no. Time to go to crowdsourcing.
No, they could only get
You know who he should have
$390,000.
approached?
EA would only give them $395,000.
You know who they should
They
have
needed
approached who's
400.
all over point and click games? Zynga.
And that would have been the best decision Double Fine ever made.
Or King.com, that
Or
would have been great.
No, we're wrapping this up.
We're not gonna start on
we're not-
King.com.
we're not moving in
because-
that direction. We're
Because
wrapping
that's
this up.
that's a
'Cause that's a
whole
different thing.
hour-long rant.
I'll just say, you, King, and... okay.
I will just say this. Saga is a goddamn word that has existed for centuries. You, King.
Candy hasn't been around as long, but we'll go with it.
It's still delicious, and you anyway.
I'm not as offended by candy as I am by the
Are
concept
you going to
of
sue
them
Nestle next?
trademarking Saga. I'm not as offended. Anyways, so yeah, we'll wrap this up now. Yes, definitely. I think I do agree.
They're
I don't
gonna
think
posthumously sue Beowulf.
Kickstarter was for. They're gonna posthumously sue. They're gonna sue Homer.
Find out. Yeah, they're gonna find
They're gonna
out.
sue Homer.
Court order to exhume the body.
So it can appear to testify.
Yeah.
It makes enough sense.
They get the
And then they'll rig it up.
Ghostbusters.
And then they'll rig it up so it can talk, and then they'll have the guy who voices Homer come in.
They'll get the guy who votes Homer
Perfect.
Simpson.
No, okay, we're wrapping this up.
Yes, we are wrapping this up. Yeah, I would agree though. I don't think Kickstarter was intended for Double Fine, and
No.
I think that early access also similarly. There are some games that get early access where I'm like, this is not what early access is for. Like you're not the people that early access is for. Well, maybe. But I feel like the whole
Double Fine again?
early access Kickstarter, it's definitely a mixed bag that seems to be leaning towards bad investment at the moment.
I just have one more thought.
Okay.
There's also that definitely
And then
line
Devin's done with thinking for the rest of his life.
forever.
No. Thought now.
It's
Go.
Devin's final thought.
You be quiet.
Okay, Jerry.
There's that weird line of when is it just early access? When does early access mean a game that isn't done yet versus when is this early access versus you're just getting access to a game that hasn't come out yet?
Well, yeah, that brings up the question of, I mean, when we talked all about Minecraft, the main thought in my head was, I always considered that Minecraft should have been gold long before it actually was live.
Right.
Like the last few months of its beta process is like you had no reason to be in beta anymore.
Well,
You were
I more
good.
so mean
you should
like
have just released
there's
at that point.
early access and there's beta access.
Yeah, and I would say that maybe
better
we need to
about
start
that.
distinguishing. Maybe there needs to be more distinguishing between what's early access and what's beta access. And
And what's alpha
I think that's
access
I think
sometimes,
that's
too.
a problem of
Because the Starbound's clearly
beta
alpha.
is becoming very much less and less clearly defined. And yeah, I would agree that I would not say that Starbound is in beta.
Yeah,
Beta
I'd say late
is-
It's alpha.
Beta is a stress testing and quality control phase, and Starbound is still nailing down game mechanics. That's alpha.
That's very alpha.
Now, I have no problem with
Yeah, no,
investing in an
but
alpha.
Tell
but
me
there needs to be that difference.
Yeah.
So are you guys
That
suggesting that Starbound is alpha as
It's alpha as I would agree.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe that's a distinction that needs to start happening.
That was my final.
I think it was a good one. I think it was worthwhile. I appreciate it. Even though Ben mocked you for it. No,
I
I'm
missed the
going now.
backdrop.
I'm going now. Yeah, I needed to dim the lights. That's what I needed to do. Too bad I don't have any of those remote control lights in my system. I'm going to dim the lights except for the one pointing on Devin. And here's my final thought. All right, so with all of that said and done, as always, we do thank anybody that is willing to listen through the entirety of this. And please, if you if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the other videos on our channel, please subscribe to our channel. Go check out our other videos on our channel. And I am Naz T-Man.
Benjamin Arthur.
Scary Uncle Devin.
Tymo.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Press A to Climb Soapbox. As Kyle nails the microphone right at the end. That's okay.